What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we're going to be talking about my picks for what were the top 10 decks of the 2022 era. So, since we're closing up it, I figured it would be a fun little Thursday video to go over my picks for what would be best decks. So, what would you pick? Let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's dive into the video, shall we? So first off, we're going to be in the number 10 slot. Has to be the Gabumon of Friendship deck. This deck really took by storm when it got released. It had some decent support, but when EX01 finally released, and this actually topped as one of the best decks in regionals for nationals and stuff like that. So this is how some players actually got their invite to World with. And it really proved and paved the way because having cards like Ice Wall at full 4 of was really hard to get around. It became ridiculous because turn after turn you can slam down an Ice Wall and prevent your opponent from playing the game. So because of the effect of when attacking, lose 2 memory until the end of your opponent's next turn, this card got really ridiculous pretty quickly. 4 Ice Walls really prevented plays, and being a 1 cost was huge because you could memory choke your opponent to 1 if they didn't have a memory setter to pretty much prevent that. So it's just something to think about there. And like being able to combo in Matt Ishida, being able to warp by trashing 2 of your security, you can warp into Gabumon's of Friendship, any of your Gabumons, which only had to be in raising anyway. So I mean, as long as you could get there, that was huge. So, I mean, it cost 3 to Digivolve, so all you needed was a Davis on board. Now your opponent was really struggling because when you took into account of this one being able to make 3 possible attacks with Gabumon of Friendship because he gives 1 for himself, and then he has another, the Gabumon's Inheritable will create another restand, causing 3 attacks, but also being able to bounce your opponents, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the bottom of their deck, trash all Digi-Evolution cards of that Digimon. That was huge. Being able to bottom deck 3 Digimon when this attacked, it wasn't once per turn, was really applying an extreme amount of pressure, and then all you had to do was, if you didn't kill them with Gabumon, you could instantly Lobo for game, or, you could go for this card, Garurumon, for game. So this allowed a lot of plays, and using Hammer Sparks to extend your plays was huge. What was very interesting was the Ikakumon tech, this because it could attack. This Digimon can attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with no Digi-Evolution sources. This helped control the board and get rid of threats like Madoki Betamon, anything like that that could slow you down. So all in all, the deck really was consistent until Ice Wall, and then all of a sudden got hit to 1. Then all of a sudden your opponent, the meta shifted to being from BT6 to BT7, which presented in its own rights, and BT7 created more hybrids, so the Bond decks could not keep up because what was there to control that? You hit into the security, and then all of a sudden the hybrids just come out, and all the tamers come out, and then your opponent just goes off and gains like 10 memory in 1 turn and just spits out all the hybrids they need to just kill you. So you really couldn't afford to lose security to Digivolve up. So that's kind of just where that happened. Next, we got the Lilithmon loop deck. So until Mega Digimon Fusion got hit, even then, the deck still topped a few times after the hit for Mega Digimon Fusion. This allowed you to basically get a free your level 6 into a level 7 for nothing. So that was kind of huge. You had to have a white tamer on board. So Manoa and Analog Youth were kind of like the go-to tamer used. This is, this deck got top 16 both major events, got 4th place actually, so top 8 I would say. 4th place is huge, but Lilithmon using the ability to use options to gain you back memory. So what you would do with Lilithmon loop is you would Digivolve on 1 stack with Lilithmon, get all a stack of like 10 to 20 cards in trash, so when you use Jack Raid, it'll get you free. Then what you would do is swing with your Omnimon Zwart, then pull out the Lilithmon from the inheritable, so that no matter what, you had one in hand, and then you would use the Omnimon Zwart that you just played, you know, Lady Devi, Rebellymon, or Skull Greymon, just to go right back into another Lilithmon, grabbing you the 2 options, and then replaying the loop again, and doing this consistently to kill your opponent. What you would also do is Gabumon Promote as the second Digimon, so that you can always just keep going into Omnimon Zwart, spitting out Ginkamons, and going from there. It really provided a very lethal tactic and applied a lot of pressure. The deck still has some running pressure now. It became Minerva Loop, but Lilithmon Loop was really the first ever real loop deck we actually had in the game, because of the combination between Lilithmon and Jack Raid, and then going with a free Omnimon Zwart, allowing you to apply that much pressure because you got free bodies out of it, and that just really sealed the deal in most cases. Once the loop started going, this could take like 10 to 15 to 20 minutes at a time, and it would always possibly lead to lethal, depending on if your security was strong enough to actually stop the loop, but sometimes it wasn't. You would have to kill off Lilithmon mid-loop, and that's kind of huge. If you didn't do that, like when they started swinging with the promotes, that was kind of your wait-and-see game. Next, we do have Red Ancient Greymon Hybrid. This is the number 8 pick, I would say. Number 8 pick. The reason for this took quite a few tops, actually, throughout its span, even into BT9. Mario really paved the way for it to be able to do so, but hasn't topped ever since. But that's why it's kind of in the lower end here. The thing about it is that you hide and raising, build up a massive amount of stacking power in Ancient Greymon's abilities by going crazily high up, and then when you started swinging in, you would get all these free checks that your opponent could not stop, because all you did was go for a Flamemon, then do a couple, after you do like even one of this Agunimon here, then you would go stack a bunch of Burning Greymons in it, and then go into Aldermon, so that made sure all option security was prevented, and then you would swing in with 13,000 DP, and that would create a constant wipe, and then you would just Omni Blitz for game, allowing your opponent to really hit a wall at times. That's really important, because you didn't care how long your opponent hit you for, as long as you saw the out eventually. That was kind of huge to see. I mean, that is very important. I mean, even using Hero to make sure that you got over most threats is really big. I mean, you had Gaia Force and Crimson Blaze to control board states. It was really important there. But hey, that's just how the game kind of rolls sometimes, right? OTK just does its thing. Next, for our number 7 pick is gotta be none other than D-Reaper. D-Reaper started taking tops in BT9 once they did the hits to the hybrids, and that was really enough in some cases. With the only deck that can really slow this deck down was Psychmon. That was very important. Mother D-Reaper was able to contest a lot of decks because the ability of its consistency and viability of being able to choke your opponent to one memory. If they didn't see their memory tamer, they were kind of screwed. If they saw their memory tamer, that was kind of what would play the pace of the game. I mean, being able to combo in, giving an X antibody under your Mother Reaper to be able to tick up your Gatekeepers a turn earlier, or even just getting like Pallades Head, Jerry down a turn earlier was huge in this form. And that was very important to this deck, being able to have its consistent searchers and stuff like that. And being able to use Starmons to, because you build a wide board, be able to remove annoying threats to make them easily removed. And then we did have Death X being a top contender for the deck, because if your opponent went wide to try to counter you, you punish them by going you got rid of their wide board very easily. So stuff like this is very important to keep an eye on, and I think this is very important in the long game. I think D-Reaper definitely deserved this slot here. Next, we're going to talk about is Green Hybrid. This was very interesting. It took one top in the format of BT8, and then all of a sudden, this deck was everywhere. Being able to shut down a lot of problem decks because you use like RideMyAvatar with the Terriermon in the EX2, allowing you to slow down your opponent's game state because now you had enough tamers that would justify RideMyAvatar's ability to suspend and giving that 5,000 BP, minusing, and then you get to pick off Digimon you wanted was really important. And being able to still just be able to climb up into Ancient Beetlemon, which would then just clear the field and be able to trash security for free when it killed something, with then giving it Pierce through JP's effect, really did apply a lot of numbers to opponents. And being able to use Calamon for really just to reduce and get some draw advantage and get some memory gain was really important. I think all in all, it was a really powerful deck that really took storm once it was found out, and it stayed in the meta until we got to BT9, where it just was, even had one small top, but it was still very powerful of a deck. I think it came down to even just having Argomon being able to suspend all your opponent's tamers was actually a very powerful play. So I definitely think that was a big threat in itself. Next, Imperialdramon is our number 5 slot pick. So the reason why we're talking about this, it never really got like first place. I think it only had like a weird first place in like a non-sanctioned event. But outside of that, this deck really applied in the OTK form, started out in BT8, being able to apply pressure with just constant, being able to swing in with no jamming. This was basically what Metalgarurumon was trying to do without having to be like, oh, I lose resources and stuff like that. But this one just had jamming inheritables that would just apply so much pressure, because being able to restand with the Imperialdramon, being able to OTK that way was really powerful. And the deck is still competitively viable right now. Being able to unsuspend and get 2 attacks in, really good in my opinion. But, you know, you also had Imperialdramon Dragon Mode, being able to take out the 2 sources after you've done your combo, and then possibly Jagras back into another Imperialdramon for game status, really did apply a lot of decent pressure. And the draw advantage of this deck is far by none. Sometimes it really was very interesting, but like all decks, Metalgarurumon just overpowered this deck eventually, just because of how strong Metalgarurumon's OTK potential is. So I think being able to have all this powerful cards, and even now looking at it, there's Ice Wall at 1 here, it's still a very powerful blue tech. Then we do have Yellow Hybrid at its hype. So Yellow Hybrid still is around now. It's a lot weaker because Jet Sylphie is now restricted to 1, but the deck's main goal was to load up their security with very powerful threatening options. And by the time your opponent has a time to answer you, you should be able to have Susano ready to just handle everything else. This deck was very much at its hype all the way up to BT8. It's still topped in BT7, but it was yellow-purple until we got the RideMyAvatar in BT8, and then all the way up to BT9. The deck started, BT9 is when it officially phased out because of the restriction. But being able to climb up and then get a free recovery 1 because you just had a hybrid was huge for this deck. And now your opponent just had to play a different game because, oh, all 5 of this went? Well, I got 6 memory now. Let me go right back into a Jet Sylphie twice, and now we got free recovery, and then you can go into a Funimon fall down mode to get another free recovery. So applying all that hard work to be thrown out the window just to get security bomb left and right into it really did put some frustration. This deck caused a lot of events to go into overtime almost every single round. So Yes, Jet Sylphie had to be restricted to 1 just to slow this deck down because that recovery potential was too great. And using their Tamers just to go for game was really powerful at times. Number 3 has to go to Grand Kuwaga. So Grandis, yes, I think there's plenty of OTK decks, but Grandis actually has probably a lot more representation and tops 16 layouts. This deck being able to swing in, clear out all security, and only bad matchup with Setcon was really important because of how the deck played out. I mean, being able to take out all the security and then just go boom, boom, restand. Maybe that was 5 security at once. Maybe it's even more now. That was really powerful. And now with the addition in BT10 with the Kuwagamon, now you're able to use Kuwagamon X Antibody to its fullest because now you can go Yoko, Kuwagamon X Antibody, then Weedmon, and then, you know, Metalgarurumon, then go into a Kuwagamon for that ability that would allow you to get, when this Digimon would digivolve into an Insectoid, illustrates all your opponent's Digimon gets all turns. When this Digimon is suspended, lose one memory until the opponent's next turn. That makes it a blanketing effect that makes it so when they attack, they lose memory. When they block, they lose memory. Or when you suspend it by your effect, really made them lose memory. So a Kuwagamon X Antibody was also another seal the deal kind of card because it could reduce the Digi-Evolution cost of Grand Kuwagamon. Now you Digiburst everything out. Now your opponent is now facing down 4 security checks very easily. What really made the deck struggle a bit at times was the fact that Grandis Kuwagamon, you might not have always gotten your Grand Kuwagamon underneath it in time, and then Grandis kind of just made it a little bit tougher to OTK because you didn't get the pieces in time. Deck is still phenomenal, and going into future formats, I think it'll be ready to take formats by storm still. Next, we do have Blue Hybrid. Blue Hybrid took so many tops once it came out, it wasn't even funny. The deck had to go. They had, because the ability of being able to stun your opponent's Digimon that you were stripping their sources from really was a problem. Being able to on-play trash 3 cards from 3 of the Digi-Evolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon was very nasty, especially if they hit Tommy at the right time. You were done for at times that your opponent just could not keep up, while you were basically getting free value out of it because now those inheritables are gone, and then the following turn you would just go Tommy into Kuwagamon to stun, and then you could stun another Digimon that they probably had to do to search, or even just going into Hollowing Memory Boost to completely remove the stack, so now they're completely dead to you. So really important. The deck really applied a lot of pressure, and it took so many tops all the way up to EX2 until its inevitable hit, with Tommy being restricted to 1. And then the meta kind of changed to being an OTK format, so this deck really couldn't keep up anymore either. So stuff like that was really what sealed the deal for this deck. This deck was very powerful going throughout. And then finally, our number 1 pick has to be Metalgarurumon X. This deck can OTK you ridiculously. Even now, it's still considered one of the top decks. Since its release, it has been able to top almost every event. It has taken up multiple top 16s. So this deck just can OTK you at level 5, and that's all it does. I mean, as long as it has at least 2 protections, that's 3 hits. It needs you to have like above level attacks. So if your security is just trash, this walks right through. The only real weakness to this is options like Guidus Breath, Gaia Force, stuff like that, that when they swing into it, they will die. But if you don't have that, your likelihood of seeing that was really undervalued. So that was a big problem because this deck really can apply so much pressure because all of a sudden now you're clearing out security left and right. Inconsistency wise, it had the very powerful draw engine for this promo Garurumon, but also all you had to do was swing twice with this, and then you would digivolve into Garurumon X Antibody to get a free restand, but now it has security +1, applying even more pressure, and it gets ridiculous pretty quickly. And it's still that powerful today because even at the end of the top end, you have Metalgarurumon X antibody being able to basically bounce one of your opponent's Digimon if it unsuspends. Well, it has to be return all of the lowest levels to their owner's hand, but that's just huge. I mean, and now even with Omnimon X antibody, now removing threats from security really can apply a lot of pressure that way as well. So all in all, the decks have evolved, but I think this is a great top 10 in my opinion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, guys, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and peace.